trying to be a motivator is not really the style, but actually motivate them with actions is mainly the style that works.
Welcome to The Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Welcome back, investors. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Kranti Poonam, Director of Capital at 4 Oaks Capital. Kranti owns over 2,000 units as an active investor. And I know he's done just a ton since the last interview. I'd like to just go through very briefly for those of you who missed it. I would highly recommend going back because he has a ton of information about private equity and about leadership. So we're not going to go through all of that again today. So if you have the opportunity, definitely when you're done checking this out, go back and listen to the first Foundry interview. So he's a tech entrepreneur who's a founder of multiple tech companies and a passive investor in others. He's also the host of the fabulous Mind Your Data podcast that focuses on how to apply data science to business. And today, I believe you're coming to us from beautiful and sunny San Diego. So welcome to the show, Kranti.
Thanks a lot, George. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me back. I'm excited to be talking again, and it's been a while. So there's a lot that has happened over the past few months that's going to be really interesting, both from the economy and from my personal standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're definitely going to dive into both. I'd like to start with real estate because that's something we generally speak a lot about this. I know you've got a lot of ground up construction projects that you've done and that you're currently working on. So the first question I'd like to ask developers is, do you prefer to build or buy existing and why?
So it is the way I've looked at it is I really want to get an ideal state of buying 50% buy and 50% build. We're still very, I think, lighter on the build side, and we want to ramp up that portfolio. The thought process is different investors like different types of returns. Some of them like income-based returns. Some of them like value returns. Some of them see value add multifamily as a risk and like the aspect of building Class A, really good product, and then really going to market, which is risky to build, but I think when you look at the return standpoint, I think they're a little more, they're guaranteed, for lack of a better word, and there's no guarantee in investing, but you can at least see a new product will sell, while a value add product could probably sell lower than what you estimated the underwriting was for. So we're trying to look at that model of really keeping that close to being half of our deals are value add multifamily to half of them are build.
Yeah, I love it. And certainly uncertainties either way. When you open up the walls, you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah.
But then the process, such a long process from, entitlement, pulling permits to actually closing the loop and finishing a project. Yeah, definitely both have their challenges. And I think it's great. And one of the reasons why I think it's great is my family's in building. And I'll tell you that we have a lot of problems right now in our country. Last building report showed that we've crashed to below sub 1.5 million rates of construction, which is bad because that's our replacement rate.
Yeah.
And it seems like every time we get above it, then that we end up going right back below again. So as a developer, I'd love to ask you, what do you think are some things that are holding developers back from building the residential units that we need?
And I think it's pretty obvious the number one reason being interest rates, right? Most people that actually bought these lands and got them and went through entitlement process probably underwrote them for a much lower interest rate environment, which in effect we have went up 500 basis points. So your underwriting never called for a 9% or a 10% construction loan, probably called for a 6% construction loan. So you can't build. So what are you doing? You're just sitting, you're waiting, sitting on the sidelines for the rates to come down. The other portion that has happened is obviously the demand's out there, and with there's a big supply that has come in over the last 3 years. that actually is coming to market. But I think what that does is in some markets, you can get a little overcrowded. But over the next few years, that supply is not going to come. And these will, eventually all of those homes will go up in price. We're seeing price corrections in some markets. The market that I'm in, San Diego, we've not seen a ton in most areas. There are areas that have taken a beating of 10%, but still we're in such a housing shortage situation that really things have not gone south in terms of pricing. Rents, on the other hand, have definitely plateaued. I mean, you're not going to get the 10-20% increase year over year that you were getting for the past 3 years. In some markets, it was much higher, but I think it's normalized. We're actually happy keeping the tenant at the same rate at this point because the occupancy levels, I mean, the whole of the Atlanta market currently in the city of Atlanta is about, I'd say, 89 to 90%. So if you want to keep your occupancy at 90%, what do? You want to be below what the current trending rent is in your area. So it's a different environment than when we last spoke, I guess, even for that matter. So yeah.
Yeah, huge. And I'm glad you mentioned the heterogeneity in the housing market because it's true. When I'm speaking about the national housing market, important to bear in mind, as you said, we have a significant housing shortage. But locally, some places are built up a lot more than others. Always have to check that supply coming online. Very true. Well, anyway, let's take it down from the macro level down to your company. Let's figure out what are some of your recent projects, some of the things you're working on, and great opportunity for our listeners to get to know Kranti.
Right. So when I sold my business in 2022, we created two different funds. One was the real estate fund. The other one is a private equity company. And as part of the real estate fund, we always bought value add multifamily and development deals. So right now we're actually creating a family entertainment center under the real estate fund. Yes, it is a little bit different, but has the real estate aspect to it where we're building up from ground up. And the reason we looked into that space is, over the years, there's been a lot of demand towards figuring out a cash flow model for our investors because value add or new builds really don't provide that cash flow. But a family entertainment center has always provided pretty decent cash flow. So we're transitioning from a pure play real estate investment firm to a sort of a real estate focused but private equity company, which will do deals outside of that space. And having the background of value add multifamily does help understanding the business aspect of it and really educating ourselves on what works and what not. And over the years, we figured there's not always answers for everything you get into, but if you're smart and you're willing to put the time and effort, our team's really gotten to a point where we feel very comfortable with that project. There's also the project of building new townhomes in North Carolina that we kicked off, which is, I think, is a winner across the board. There's an aspect of BTR that we could convert the whole development into a BTR community, but we haven't committed to it yet. We just want to see how the demand goes through the construction phase and see how the housing market looks like, and then maybe make that call. So, and on the true private equity side, we've started a venture fund to invest in startups that we are creating ourselves with new founders, and we started about 3 different organizations within the venture fund.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. I love the ground up construction, particularly that family entertainment complex. People are definitely willing to spend on having fun. So that's a very cool thing. And I see you're expanding wider into private equity, which is cool. And we'll definitely take the interview there in a minute. But I would like to ask you a little bit, and I know we got in this when you mentioned the rates, but how has the game plan changed for you in your fund and in your real estate investments in 2024? What do you see coming up ahead?
As far as coming up ahead, what we've learned over the past year and a half, or I'd say a couple of years, is we have to be in this game for longer. we can't sell our assets at this point. Obviously, there's people who are still buying and selling, that's still going on. But and we sold an asset last year. We've made decent returns on that. But the assets that we've bought over the last 2-3 years, what we see is we have to stay longer than our original intended time frame and really pull back on the capex spends that we're doing because the rents have not gone up, right? So we have to really hold the asset, really hold the capex funds to actually last another year or so. The rates, everyone was of the opinion that we're going to have 3 to 4 rate cuts. Now they're only saying one. I think it could be one or none because we're in such a good cycle in terms of I wouldn't say a good cycle. Obviously, we're in the stagflation cycle of things, but our inflation numbers are still going to be hard with all the free money that's been given out. So we're gonna hit some tough times in the next few years, and our main thing has been over the last year and a half to really protect our investors' capital to stay in this till like 2026, 2027 if needed, so that we actually make the returns that we projected, right? The cap rates definitely have to come down for our underwriting to work, but every asset, if the longer you can hold, the better it gets from a return standpoint. Again, it really depends on how well you're running it, but if you can't run it, obviously you have to sell it. But if your debts are, and all our debts are pretty much, basically are not floating rates, so we're lucky from that aspect. We still have to refi on a few in a year and a half or two, and we'll be at a better spot. So that's the thing on the value add multifamily. As far as new construction, I think new construction will always have a market. I mean, it is the risk is really, can you deliver the product within the underwriting estimates that you've done? That's the biggest risk. But as far as the prices and and rates, housing is always, to your point, we still have a shortage. We might not make top dollar, but we'll always come out fine if we could deliver the product, a quality product that fits the market.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, as I mentioned, we do talk a lot about real estate on the show, but why stop there, Kranti? I know you've scaled many companies, starting with, I believe it was a belt buckle retailer. Now, currently, I realize you're working on scaling several tech companies. Something you've done before, right? You had a big exit you mentioned a couple of years back. Why don't you tell us about those companies? How's that endeavor going?
Yeah, so after the exit, we really focused on building businesses that we're very comfortable with, and we're in the technology services space. So we created a fund that just focuses on building. At one point, we wanted to go out and really put money on other companies, really invest in growing businesses. But what we figured is, I think in the short term, things might change in the long term, that our expertise is really operational expertise. That means we're very good operators. So we are sticking to our strength of really running, scaling, and building organizations within the same ecosystem that we know. When I say the same ecosystem, it's technology services space. We're not building a product, or we're not building things that we've not done before. So we're really using the lessons that we learned over the business that we sold to drive the outcomes, in similar outcomes in newer spaces. So that's what the technology services fund is doing, is really starting up, helping the businesses scale and really grow the business towards a logical exit point. It could be through a private equity firm or through a logical exit of selling to a strategic.
Outstanding. Well, I love the personal story, and I think we can dig into that a bit deeper with your book. It should be coming out, we hope soon, Belt Buckles to Billions. And I've heard it said that the first billion is the hardest. So what are your thoughts?
I think the first million is the hardest, and the first billion is a lot more harder. As far as the book, I think it was mainly an effort to kind of condense what I've learned over the years. Coming in with and it's a classic non-immigrant story that I have. So there's a lot of lessons that I've learned not having enough, and how the hunger drives the mentality to create new things when you don't have anything to play with. So basically having that philosophy of burning boats to actually achieve something. So taking that and really intertwining business lessons and principles that I've developed over the years to take it forward. And I think if there's someone that can benefit from it, I think that'll be something really that I'll be grateful for, of paying it forward. So that's the effort with the book. Obviously, it's been, I'd say, not an easy project. And if someone's really going to start a book, really think twice of what you want to do and why you want to do. And your why has to be really big, because it is a commitment from a time and effort and sacrifice standpoint. It's like building a business, the uncertainty aspect of how it'll come out is going to be, is going to wear you down pretty quickly. And there have been times where I'm like, why am I doing this? This is so much work, right? But it's fun too. So, it's going well. I think we're targeting to release it later this year. We originally thought it would be summer this year, and it might slip a little bit, but I'm very satisfied with the progress that's been going on.
Yeah, outstanding. And I know the hardest part of any book is really to outline the book and then get that first chapter down. So I know you're well past that now.
Mhm.
Do you have any thoughts for aspiring authors?
I think and you kind of touched on it, the most important thing is be ready to fail, right? And fail many, I mean, the whole outline, the first couple chapters were probably hard, but what was hard is really when you pull back and rethink, when you reread it, right? You're not liking it. You want to go back and redo it. The urge to have perfection was the hardest part. And then once I figured, all right, let me finish a copy and then let's redo this all over again, was a better step in the process. But overall, and I kind of touched upon it, right? If you're doing just for marketing, and there's so many other things that you could do, right? If you're doing it for personal branding, there's many other things that you could do without doing the book. But I think from that standpoint, if there's one project that you're doing, either a podcast or a webinar or a networking event, all of these are easier compared to the book aspect, because it really needs your focused attention and time. And it is a sacrifice that you have to put in those hours. And anyone can produce a book, but if you want to produce a book that is very high quality, that actually does move the needle for people, I think those need thousands of hours to actually do it. So to aspiring authors, couple messages. One, really think through why you want to do this, because it's going to be hard. And at one point you'll be like, I want to quit. So your why has to be a big why. Second thing, don't just do it for, to get your marketing out or branding out. Really do it with a purpose that to make a difference in someone's life. And I think the one thing that I suffered from was trying to make it really good. And I think what sometimes you have to live with the fact that this is the best version that I could get out of myself.
Yeah, I love it. And version one beats version none every single time. And I know it's going to be a great story because, as I said, this is our second interview. You've interviewed me as well. Know your story quite well. Very good story. And my understanding, you're not just telling your life story. So each chapter is going to have a business lesson or a life's lesson that's interwoven with that life phase for you. So I think that's a great way, I think, to write a book, and a great plan. So yeah, if you're out there thinking, hey, I got to go write a book, best way to do it is make sure that you personalize the story. You've got to have that narrative. You've really got to have a personal story, something that you can tie everything together. Otherwise, you're just writing a textbook and something that probably people are not going to want to read. But I think this is going to be a really good one, and I can't wait for the full release. Looking forward to that. Well, anyway, I think we're going to wrap. And before we go into the rapid fire round, just want to ask you, I like to ask some whimsical questions, getting to know Kranti. What is your favorite junk food?
Favorite junk food is In-N-Out Burger. If you
Mm,
guys all know what In-N-Out is, that's my go-to.
classic. I've had a few In-N-Out burgers in my day. I remember them fondly. Haven't had burgers for many years, but yes, good days, good days, good days. All right, Kranti. So with that, let's head into our rapid fire round, the seven. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. If you could be known for only one thing, what would it be?
A good man.
What's the greatest lesson in leadership you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Greatest lesson that I've learned as an entrepreneur is servant leadership is just better than trying to get people to do what you want them to do as leadership. But in my style, I think you lead by example by being a servant leader and not just telling people or talking about, trying to be a motivator is not really the style, but actually motivate them with actions is mainly the style that works.
Beautiful. What personal characteristic has been most pivotal to your success?
The one personal characteristic that's been pivotal to success is the ability to work with different people with different personalities, understanding what drives them, what motivates them, and how to deal with them in different situations. Different scenarios present different type of behaviors. For some it is push, some for some you pull, some for some you're patient, right? So really understanding what drives people and really understanding what motivates them and acting accordingly.
Yeah, deep lesson. All right, so we're going to go from the profound to the random. I got my random question cards here. Just tell me when to stop cutting this
It's a
deck.
big stack. You can stop now.
Okay, top question. What would you most like to do for someone else if you had money and time?
I think I'm already doing it. I think the one thing that both I'm doing it, and in a sense, my daughter's just started. I don't believe in getting a horse to drink to to take it to a pond to drink water. I believe in training it in such a way that it can actually figure out how to get there and do it by himself or herself. So as part of that, we've developed a program in rural communities and areas that are relatively low income neighborhoods to really take those people and put them on a path that puts them towards success, mainly in technology, right? We know things in technology that the IT unemployment rate is less than 1% for the longest time. So if we can train people in skills that'll make them employable, I think it raises the standard of living for their families and makes a huge difference. So that's what we're already doing as part of our technology services firms, really bringing them in, OJT, on job training, shadowing, and then helping them go into the workforce.
Yeah, beautiful story. Now, can you name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader, entrepreneur, investor, and tell us a story why?
So most people touch upon, the book about Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is sort of a classic that everyone really looks towards. And I always keep thinking, why do people resonate so well? And I think it's the whole aspect of storytelling and really driving that aspect. And I think for me, I think that book was pivotal. Obviously, I've seen a similar lesson in life with my own dad and how he shaped my thought process of always running your own business or being an entrepreneur. I didn't have the poor dad mentality. I always had the rich dad mentality. So I resonated very well from that standpoint because of what my dad did to me for me.
Beautiful. Can you name a tip or trick that that our investors and entrepreneurs can implement in their business today?
I think when you talk about a tip or a trick, I think what I've learned over the years is building trust. Building trust meaning we never want to present, I wouldn't say people lie, but in the sales language they use the sales you know basically the leverage that you can take in trying to sell something. But if you're a business owner or a syndicator or someone that runs a private equity, don't try to oversell just to raise money or just to get a short-term benefit. And you're seeing all the people that are getting killed right now with this market, they've always gone out and oversold what they could do. So really know what you could do, and if anything, never lie or never use the leverage that sales trying to sell gives you, where you're on the borderline. You always want to have that trust built with people that you will tell them as it is, and not someone that will sugarcoat things. So, yeah.
I love it. The greatest tip or trick is don't cut corners. Don't exactly. There's no shortcuts. I love it. Well, can you send us out with a quote to help forge our listeners as leaders and entrepreneurs?
I think the number one thing that I'm going through life right now is the biggest thing has always been for me: strategy eats action for breakfast. Your action is the cure all. It's basically, if massive action is what fixes everything. If you can think about a business, you can think about an idea, you can think about something, but you can keep thinking. And people do it with exercise, people do it with meditation, people do it with many other things that they want to do. They just want to do it, but never actually end up doing it. Think about this thing, they spend more time, more hours in their head than actually just doing it. So I think that's what I've always wanted to live by, and I've continued to live by.
So true. If you could worry 1,000 years, it wouldn't add a day to your life. Just get out there and do it, do it, do it. I love it. Well, I love to connect people. And what I want to do before we wrap up is I want to know who's the ideal person to reach out to Kranti Poonam. Who are you looking to connect with, network with, or do deals with as a result of this podcast?
I would love to connect with any upcoming entrepreneur who's starting a business. Could be real estate, could be any business, who's really needs help either from a go-to-market strategy, from a sales strategy, from understanding how operations built, or in general, how is an organization built? How do you think? What pieces that you need to bring into it? What point do you invest into your business, and at what point you scale back? Anyone that actually is an entrepreneur who's looking for advice, those are the people that I'd love to keep in touch and talk to, because I learn a lot from them too.
Yeah, love the focus on service, Kranti. Just want to make sure that our audience is able to reach out to you. So email, website, carrier pigeon, smoke signal. What's the best way to reach out to Kranti Poonam?
The best way to reach out is obviously all the social media platforms, and my website, krantipoonam.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, any of those social media platforms. I'm pretty active. So LinkedIn being the most active on.
Outstanding. We'll make sure that we have all those links in the show notes below. And I would just like to thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with our audience, Kranti.
All right. Thanks a lot, George. It was great meeting you again, and hopefully we'll keep talking.
Yes, absolutely. We'll continue the conversation. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thank you.